Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to take you along on a review of my recent holiday called Classics of the Alps through the French Alps, and this is a 2-week cycling holiday over all kinds of climbs that you might know from the Tour de France, and they're not just tough, they're often very pretty. It all started from Sisteron, a small beautiful town with a fortress, and there was a 90-kilometer ride here with as highlight the Col de Fondel with beautiful views. And then I went back down to the camping in Sisteron. Day 2 was from Sisteron to Saint-Etienne and Deverly, and this was well-known terrain for me because I've done a lot of it already in the last year when I rode through the Vercors and Drôme area of France. For example, I went through this ride to the Col d'Espreau, with rough and grey area, and then over Col de Vestre, which it's tougher than it looks, and then Col de Riopus with this beautiful area, with this beautiful view while you ride for kilometers. It's really, really nice. And then day 3 was a ride, a tour from Saint-Etienne through this beautiful nature area, through the woods, a lot of quiet roads, very little traffic, some climbing to do of course, but all along very nice. It gets a little bit busier on the roads and closer to the Col de Noyer, to the climb, which has really wonderful views. But before you get there, there's some work to be done because the climb was really tough, especially in the last 2 kilometers. It went on up, you have 11% altitude gain, and but at the top there's a restaurant where you can get your Diet Coke or whatever or whatever drink you want. And also mentionable is this downhill over nice asphalt and clear views. Then day 4 was from Saint-Etienne to Bourg-d'Oisans, and this went over 2 cols, Col de Parquetou, which is a nice climb, but get a little bit tougher in the end. The last 4 kilometers are steeper. And then when you have reached that and go down, then you eventually get to the climb of the Col de Ornon. And this after this climb, you can go down and then you can visit the camping, or you can climb Alpe d'Huez, the well-known climb. And this basically starts from the exit of the camping, so very nice. This is what we Dutch call the Dutch switch, and then you go on, and it's really, the Alpe d'Huez is really as tough a climb as they say. I was lost in the ski village. I couldn't find the end of the climb, but eventually I found it. Day 5 is a climb over Col de Sorain, and guess what? It starts on the Alpe d'Huez, so I've been doing parts of it for the second time. But then you go right in the village, and then you have these beautiful views from this balcony road. Really, really great from kilometers on. Then you go down and then you climb Col de Sarenne, and that is this one with rough mountain areas with also beautiful views on the valley. And then you go on through mountainous area and eventually you descend from the Alpe d'Huez. And guess what? The next day to La Chambre, again, I had to climb Alpe d'Huez. And this was really 2/3 to 3/4 of the climb. Eventually in this village you can then go off that climb and descend later on. And then after that, a little bit further, you climb Col du Glandon. And you get past this dam, which really almost looks like nature-like, but it isn't, of course. And there in the area, that building there is the Col du Glandon almost. And yeah, I could stop there, but it turns out 3 kilometers from there, there's another Col de Croix de Fer, also well known from all kinds of rides. And why not do that as well? So I went on that, then I descended, and then at Col du Glandon, I went in the direction of the camping. Day 7 was climbed the Col de Madeleine, but it was a rather short ride, so I took the advice of some fellow riders in my group, and did a detour before Col de Chaussee, and from there you can go downhill again and then ascend Col de la Madeleine. And when you arrive at this painted road with all kinds of art on it, you know you're almost at the end, and you can get yourself photographed at the top. And then after that, it was all the way back down to the warm valley where our camping was, because it was rather warm in that time. Day 8 was a ride from La Chambre to Villa de Rennes, and this is over the iconic Col du Télégraphe and Col de Galibier. And I have to say, the Col du Télégraphe was really, really busy with traffic. You almost are thankful that there's a traffic light in the valley so that you don't get traffic all the time, that there's some pauses in it. Then it went on to Col du Galibier, and I have to say, this is one of the most beautiful climbs I have done in my life. Really something you should see. Although it is also a lot of hard work, but because it goes on and on and on with 8 and 9% climb percentages, altitude gains, and it's really tough. But when you arrive at the top, you have really seen some beautiful vistas of the mountains in the area. And then after this, we went downhill to Villa de Rennes, which has some beautiful camping and some beautiful views in the downhill part as well. Now, the next day we could just go on over Col d'Izoard, but there was also another climb in the area that has gotten a rather important status in the Tour de France of 2022, where Pogačar lost his yellow tricot, his yellow jersey in the Tour de France. So naturally we had to try it. It is really a beast of a climb, really, really steep, and it goes on for kilometers. Now, after we arrived at the top, we went downhill, and then we went to Col d'Izoard, and you arrived there. And then I have to say, the downhill part of the Col d'Izoard was the most beautiful part. It has rock-like formations that almost look like some kind of American national park. There's also, by the way, this monument on the right side for the Italian rider Fausto Coppi. And then it went on to Giestre, a rather long way. On day 9, I went to Col Agnel, and first had to do this detour because some parts of the road were not allowed for cycles, so they had a rather steep detour. And kilometers further, I arrived at the climb to the Col Agnel, and you hear a lot of alpine marmots, I think the word is. And they tend to be not heard and not seen. But in this case, I had 2 of these animals just 3 meters from my bike when I was huffing and puffing along the road besides them. Eventually, you arrive at the top, and it's a really high top, 2,744 meters. And you get this beautiful view of the area in Italy, because it's on the border between France and Italy. And then I descended back to the French part again to go back to Giestre, and the last part is a long sloping towards downhill to Giestre. Okay, day 11, Giestre to Barcelonnette. Well, that was a little bit of a short ride, so there was an option to extend it with an extra climb to Risoul. This is a ski village where I've been skiing years ago, by the way. Of course, now there's not a flake of snow to be seen because of the warm season. And after you descend and go past a couple of villages called Vars, eventually you get on Col de Vars, and you get in this beautiful area. By the way, there's a nice restaurant at the top. They had some good walnut cake pies. It's really nice. And then you go downhill along this beautiful area to Barcelonnette. Day 12 was the hardest ride of the whole holiday. 119 kilometers, and I counted 3,400 meters altitude gain over Col d'Allo, which is this climb. Beautiful, beautiful climb. Not too much traffic, fortunately. And then Alcalde went downhill to the village of Colmar, which is also nice to have a look at, by the way. And it has a kind of a fortress, and I remember it for 14 years ago when they had medieval plays or something. It was really nice. Had a good time there. And from there, I went up to Col de Champs. Now, this almost looks like you're just cycling up the terrain of a camping or something, but this is actually the ride through the forest, to the climb, to the Col de Champs. It's really nice, very a lot of shade if you like that in your climb, out of the sun, and eventually arrives at this beautiful area in the mountains, and then you lose all that altitude gain to go down, 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 and then you can climb Col de la Caillou. Now, I've been here 14 years ago also, but I completely forgotten how beautiful this mountain is. It has really some beautiful views on the the up part of the climb to the top. Beautiful rocky areas, and it was also very quiet at this moment. Maybe because it had been raining a little bit. But the downhill part, oh man, this goes on for kilometers and kilometers and kilometers. It's like riding downhill to a scene of Lord of the Rings, with waterfalls and bridges and all this rocky area. You hear the mountain, the alpine marmots whistling. It's really a sight to be seen, and it doesn't seem to end for a long time, which is very nice. Then the next day I went to Col de la Bonnette. Now this is the highest road going road in Europe, and that means lots of climbing to be done. 22 kilometers going up, 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 and it is not, it goes sometimes quite steep. I think it was something like 8-9% sometimes. But the Col de la Bonnette is actually not the end point of this climb, because there's a little extra part further up that goes to Cime de la Bonnette. You really should go there. But going there, well, they made that part a little bit harder, because the last kilometer is really steep, and you're already up in the altitude. You're already up at 2,800 meters above sea level. So you're huffing and puffing, and then eventually you arrive here at Cime de la Bonnette, and you can take in the incredible view if there are not some motorbikes in the way. Anyway, also take a little bit walk to go a little bit higher, because that is possible, and it has beautiful 360-degree view all around the mountain area. It's really wonderful. And yeah, the road back went the same way, but that was not really not a bad thing. Day 14 was from Barcelonnette to Sisteron, back to the first camping. Along the way I saw this paraglider going down and landing nicely. Yeah, the large big cols, the climbs of the Alps are then behind us, and there are some other cols like Col de Carcinets and Col de Sagnes that you can still ascend. But yeah, just try to enjoy even the little climbs. Well, they're not that little. There's still some work to be done. And then, yeah, and go down to Sisteron, going lower and lower and lower. And also things were getting warmer and warmer and warmer, because in the valley where Sisteron lies, or at least the lower parts where the Sisteron lies, at that time it was something like 35 degrees Celsius. So it was really rather hot. The next day was the day that the bus would take us back home, but that bus would arrive only in the evening. So why not do an extra ride? So going through Sisteron, by the way, the village is the town is really a thing you should try, because it's really nice to look at. And then we went to Montagne de Lure, and this is sometimes called kind of the mini Mont Ventoux. It is like the Mont Ventoux. You go to the woods, and then suddenly everything is a bare mountain, rough, and it's a really nice, beautiful nature area. Have a look at the birds of prey that's sometimes in the air there. Beautiful, beautiful area. Well, so that's basically my tour of 2 weeks of the French Alps. I really had a blast. We had a lot of fun. I was with a group of people. Some of them I knew beforehand. We had a really good time.